What an exciting session today. We have 100 people, and you come here to listen on security and AI in Las Vegas in the afternoon. Let's try to make this an interactive session. So there's a big revolution happening with AI. We're in the center of a major change. If you compare AI revolution with an industrial revolution, 1 year of productivity in AI, just let's show of hands. How many years of AI revolution do you see? Or industrial revolution? 1 year of productivity in AI equals to how many years of industrial revolution, productivity in industrial revolution? 100? Any other takers? 0.5. That's a good contrast. 100 and 0.5. We can probably average it out. Between 40. Between 22 to 40 years, depending on whom you talk to. Most of the economists are talking about 40 years. So 1 year of productivity in AI equals to 40 years of productivity in industrial revolution. And industrial revolution is the single biggest economic milestone in the history of mankind. And that's how impactful AI is. If you think about the overall McKinsey report, we are talking about $4.5 trillion of incremental yearly productivity that we are going to see. The global GDP is about $100 trillion, 4.5 trillion. That's 5% GDP growth that you can see with artificial intelligence. By the way, AI is being used by everybody. We heard this in the keynote. We heard this in different sessions. What's interesting is we are not the only people using AI and artificial intelligence. There are threat actors, nation-state actors. With half the world's population going into elections, the increase in cyber threats have gone up by 50% in the last 1 year alone. The impact of cyber criminals on top of the negative GDP that they're creating, they're having about a 15% growth in terms of negative GDP. So that's the massive impact with AI. So the question is for us, how do you create security platforms that help you to accelerate the initiative and capture the productivity without compromising and creating negative GDP? And that's what our session today is about. For that session, we're going to have our partners from Google, whom we work very closely with. Joshua Haslett, welcome him on the stage.
Thank you, Munish.
Welcome, Josh.
It's good to be here. Hey, thanks everybody for coming. It's great to be here at this conference. It's great to be in person again, and it's great to see this many people here at Google Cloud Next. It's a wonderful thing. Google Cloud and Palo Alto Networks have been partners since 2017. And one of the amazing things is Palo Alto Networks has won a Global Technology Partner of the Year award every single year since. And as a matter of fact, at this show, we announced that they were the Global Technology Partner of the Year, Marketplace for Security Partner of the Year, and also Endpoint Protection Security Partner of the Year. So very exciting to have you here with us today.
Thank you for the partnership.
Absolutely. It's interesting. I think there's one more thing, Munish, on my, hit the next one maybe?
All yours.
All right, well, kick it off.
So thank you, Josh. That was the partnership speaking, because we have a little bit of a mess up of slides, but that's fine. We'll play this along. So if you think about the opportunities in AI, we've talked about it being game-changing. And it's game-changing not because technology is great, not because we've got Gemini, not because we've got the best processor, not because $7,500 your investment in NVIDIA 25 years back creates $20 million in your bank account today. That's not why it's interesting. It's a change in business model. And that's what makes it exciting. There are a couple of conversations we want to have. If you've heard about James Earl Jones, how many of you have heard of James Earl Jones? Oh, it's a lot of them. You know how much he earned out of giving his voice in the Star Wars, the whole environment? $7,500 is what he earned. It was a $60 billion franchise. And Hollywood is against AI. There are AI strikes there. He decided to go the other way. He's actually provided his voice to AI for it to live forever. Business model change, how you think about how you can use AI to create completely new opportunities for yourself. Very simple example, and we heard a lot of this today about customer support. Half the time, let's take you, on average, it takes about 10 days to solve an enterprise problem whenever you call customer support. Palo Alto makes it faster, but on an average for the rest of them. 3.5 days is spent by the person whom you call. He's trying to research the problem you have. With generative AI, you can summarize that problem and clearly create value immediately. And that's the type of productivity increase. Simple things that we are seeing productivity increase happen. Of course, 9 out of 10 of your CEOs and board members are today in the board meeting talking about what we can do about AI. We heard a lot from Google this morning, from Thomas Kurian and his team, on what AI can do. But Josh, love your opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Munish. You know, it's interesting, of course, from a Google perspective, I'm sure everybody's hearing a lot about how we feel about AI and Gen AI. One of the great things is KPMG did a study recently, and for CEOs surveyed with companies of $1 billion or more in revenue, they all have major Gen AI initiatives. And the reason is because they see the opportunity to delight their customers and improve efficiencies in the way that they run things in their business. Think about, for instance, sales and marketing. How many in the room have RFPs that you respond to? There's a couple out there. Can you imagine if your salesperson had the ability to dip into the corpus of information that your organization has, things that are timely on your services, your products, and the way that you help support customers? Take the questions that are in the RFP, submit those directly into an interface that allows for searching that corpus of information and producing very accurate, timely responses to that RFP to give you more at-bats and give you better hit percentage. That's revenue to the bottom line. So things like these are super important about how do we think about reimagining the way that we do business in the back office and the way that we interact with customers. But there's some concerns. At least I imagine everyone in the room probably has some concerns. So Munish, can you help us walk through some of those?
Sure. This is, Josh and I were going through the session, and we are trying to capture, we talked to our CISO, we talked to our SOC operations. Give us all the latest threats that you have seen because of AI. And there was a word cloud. It probably needed a LLM to solve and find out answers from the number of threats people are thinking of on a daily basis. There's prompt injection, there's data theft, there's data exfiltration, there's data poisoning, there is the whole status of situation of denial of service attacks. There's a whole lot of different things that are happening in the market. And we're trying to reflect on why is this sudden increase of threats that have come there. If you think about the industry as to how we have thought about technology and changes in technology, we'll take virtualization. I'm not going to take telephony because it took 75 years to hit 100 million subscribers in telephony. So let's leave that aside. Let's just take virtualization of the last 20 years. It took about 10 years for us to get to mainstream. 10 years. So there was a lot of time for the industry to look at the technology, the value proposition, how it got deployed, how do you secure it. Fast forward, we went into the mobile revolution. It's about 7 years, mobile and social revolution, 6 to 7 years. Cloud was faster, 5 years. With LLMs, it was 4 months. So the industry has got this whole new massive adoption. And by the way, ChatGPT hit downloads, 100 million downloads in 2 months. Even Facebook took 3.6 to 4 years to hit 100 million subscribers. And that's the dramatic impact of how massive information flow is coming into this whole industry, and that's how threat actors are starting to think about this. So the question is, how do we organize ourselves? Because we know there's a big productivity gain. We know the CXOs are driving opportunity here. We know we have to adopt it in every part of our business to stay competitive and stay differentiated. So what do we do about it? So we came up with a framework together across both our teams to say that let's break this up into a way that we can analyze it in a systematic basis and continue to evolve the thinking across these. And the framework consists of 5 main categories. We'll evolve them more as we see more coming out in this market. First is, what do you do about your data? An example of data poisoning and a category of data poisoning. All of you might have seen the Tesla announcement on Friday. The stock went up $10 in the last 48 hours. And they're talking about full autonomous driving. What happens in the stop sign, you have a sticker and it fools it as a 25-mile-per-hour board. The car goes right through and you have challenges. Data poisoning, that's an example of data poisoning. So there are other examples in data exfiltration, data theft, all of that other things can happen. So that's one category. The second category of problems is around models. And if you start thinking about models, the Meta model, and Meta is a very mature organization. They have a lot of security. They launched a very advanced personalized research model called Llama. Within a week, it was available on BitTorrent. Somebody could download it. This happened in early March. And we all know that some of these organizations know more about you than you know about yourself. So think about the phishing attacks you're going to have. And that is model theft. And there are categories around those model theft. The third area is around inferencing. And you have a prompt injection. You're releasing a result, and you type into a chatbot to say, what was XYZ company's result? You take the CFO's information, you take your information, you inject a prompt, you fool the answer to be 40% growth. Might have been 20, might have been 60. Stock prices change, brand gets impacted. So that's prompt injection. There are several examples in each of these categories, but this is just to give you a representation of 3. And I want to give the boring pieces to my partner.
Well, thank you, Munish. Yeah, well, we'll talk about the platform now. So from an infrastructure perspective, I called up my good friend Ryan, and I was taking some notes on this. And it's interesting, when we think about infrastructure and how we protect it, things have become boundaryless, right? Now we have users that are on any device, on any network, accessing any application with data that could be resident anywhere in the back end. And so we have to think about, how do we access that infrastructure securely? How do we put zero trust models in place? And how do we put the right SASE controls to where you have that full stack architecture to make sure that you can put the right boundaries? If you think about video conferencing, for instance, you could be on a SaaS app, on a mobile device, on any network, and now you're recording that conversation. Could be your IP from your corporation that's being captured in that recording. Do you know where that data is going? Is it residing with your SaaS provider? Have you made sure that that's going into your infrastructure? What are the controls around that information? So you have to think differently about how you protect your infrastructure. And then that kind of takes us to governance. So how do we think about how your LLMs are trained and tuned to begin with? So what are the controls around trying to avoid bias, especially social bias? Color, race, religion, age, those type of things come into play. And how do you prevent hallucinations? You want your LLMs to be creative so they can generate good responses, but you also want them to be factual. So these are new components you have to think about in your business as you start to deploy AI in your infrastructure. So we've been thinking about, how do we help you walk down that path? How do we put this into practice? And Palo Alto has been working with AI and working with Google. For the last decade, I think you've been innovating with AI. But you've been committed to Vertex AI, and we had a press release this morning about how we've been partnering on Gen AI. And so when we think about SAFE, Palo Alto has been at the table with us to work through this architecture. And the first is, we really think about, you protect AI to begin with the same way that you protect your applications in a traditional infrastructure. So you put in the typical controls. The second one is extending your threat intelligence to understand what type of vulnerabilities could exist. Munish just walked through a number of them: prompt injection, model hacking, those type of things. And so you have to think about, what are they and how do you safeguard against them? The next is, or the third is, to automate your defenses. So use AI to help defend against AI. We're going to talk about some of those components here in a moment. Number 4, you want to make sure that you're harmonizing your platform controls so that you have consistent security controls across the organization. Each team needs to think about, how are we deploying AI models and what are the safeguards we put in place. Number 5, adapting controls. Things are moving quickly in AI, right? I mean, from week to week, we're seeing iterative step change when it comes to what we're delivering in the functions and how we're servicing up new models. Even today, you hear about new processor releases that we have. You have to make sure that you continue to do that continuous feedback on what are we implementing and how's it being deployed. And number 6, making sure that you are understanding the context for which the use cases will be in each of your departments. Take a look at a risk assessment and then make sure that you visit that regularly. Munish, could you help? Actually, we'll go through a little bit of an AI architecture.
That's
Once again, one of the boring things.
Yeah.
So an AI app, traditional AI app. Of course, you've got some sort of a user interface or an API interface where applications can enter into your application environment. The second is you need some sort of AI model or LLM that can handle your natural language understanding. And then, of course, you're going to have data that resides inside your organization, maybe third-party data that resides outside the organization. And as we announced in the keynote today, maybe you're even tying into Google Search so that you can ground this information. Now, the reality is that that opens up a number of different things that you have to make sure you're controlling when it comes to your data. And we also have to think about what are the plugins that have access. So, Munish, can you talk a little bit about the threats that we're seeing and how we handle those?
Absolutely. I'm going to use an example. This morning we had probably, how many of you counted how many examples were there in the keynote? About 80 examples were there in terms of implementation. So we'll take one of them, a retail supply chain. Let's take a supplier, a Home Depot. Well, Home Depot is going to come in a few minutes, so might be a reasonable interpretation. Home Depot has many suppliers. They're going to be providing a whole lot of items into the store. You want to make sure that you have your inventory full. You want to make sure you have just-in-time inventory. There's no wastage. There's a whole lot of productivity benefits. If you can improve using LLM technology that connects the inventory management system, warehouse management system, the billing system, all of them in a nice consolidated manner, you can do better demand forecasting, and you can create a whole new value proposition. Because the current architectures, the way they get implemented on average, is they're different vendors, each having their different databases, and you try to bring all of this data together, but it's really never there. It's always in silos. But with an LLM capability, you'll have to integrate into these databases. So that's the architectural shift that's going to happen. In a traditional architecture situation, you could protect it because you had firewalls. You could ensure there's no traffic moving from one system to the other system. There's a whole lot of capabilities you can create. But if you think about in the AI world, as a user, you're going to be typing in saying, what's my inventory today? What's the forecast of this inventory? How much, when should I ship these items? And how quickly can I get billed? Let's assume that's a query. That query goes across multiple subsystems, pulls all the data, but it also opens it up for attack. Assuming the supplier does not have the right security, they could have a phishing attack that a user could use and get into the Home Depot system, download the inventory. You could have denial of service attacks. You could export a whole lot of pricing information, so you could have competitive issues around there. So you could create multiple levels of attacks, whether they are models that you could fool to say that 99% inventory is low, please ship more, or you could inject a whole new pricing capability there so Home Depot starts paying more. That's a reality. That could happen. So the question is, how do we address that? What we have through our platform approach, we have looked at this systematically and thought about this. So the first thing is, from a phishing attack point of view, you buy a SASE solution, zero trust architecture that allows you to make sure you have the right security as you enter into a cloud application on a workload. Traditional applications, what they do is that once the user is allowed to get in, then he's free to do whatever he wants. What Palo Alto uses AI and machine learning to continuously verify what that user is doing. And that's the real differentiator. Because it's not just about allowing access and dual authentication, but it's also continuously allowing and verifying that this guy is going to the inventory system. He shouldn't be going to the inventory system. So those are the areas that we protect ourselves. Second is, assuming even in continuous verification, you have entered the system, you're still entering the system that you were predicted to, but you're starting to add data, which looks okay. It's nothing wrong with it. Then you start exfiltrating data and sending information to another database. That's where the AI firewalls and the new technologies that we're introducing that ensures that if there's a denial of service attack or if there's a movement of traffic from one place to another, we can detect it and we can raise the right alerts. Third is around the data itself. As you start creating a snapshot of data, and assuming you have a privacy data, you now have an understanding of what my current database is. And if the customer starts pulling out and exfiltrating that information, that privacy data is going to be attacked. There's going to be an automatic alert that gets created that goes to an autonomous SOC that's actually looking at this trend. Somebody logged in, somebody went into a different application, somebody went through and connected to the current data store. So you're starting to see a pattern. And all of this is happening in machine learning and speed. Now, you could buy 25 different companies and products to bring that, but just think about what it takes to just integrate those security threats and alerts. Even if you have the best cloud logging system, how do you really understand that this threat or phishing attack was related to this movement of traffic? And that, what we are trying to do is we're platformizing this and created 50 integrations into the Google infrastructure that allows us to look at this cohesively, work with machine learning speed so that you're thinking about the security in incremental basis versus you becoming a security integrator. And that's really the big change that we have brought to, and that's one of the basis of our announcements today. So we'll go into the individual components of this from an engineering standpoint.
Yeah, thank you, Munish. So one of the great things is, Munish talked about access, and we talked about SASE and Zero Trust. One of the great things is Palo Alto built Prisma Access directly on top of Google's planet-scale network. And we've integrated with our cross-cloud network, which allows for you now to have access for, through the Prisma Access solution, direct connect into your VPCs for optimal traffic routing, low latency connections. You've also got the capability, as you're building AI applications in your environment, your data could reside anywhere. Could be on-prem, could be in another CSP. And with cross-cloud network, we can bring all this together, and then you can have a security layer over the top of it using Prisma Access. And there's more. So we've also announced GA for Google Cloud Next Generation Firewall here at Next. And the fantastic thing about this is we've brought together the ML and AI machine learning capabilities that Palo Alto has in their next generation firewall. We've offered this up as a managed service by Google that's available directly through the console. And the wonderful thing about this is it completely changes the way that you can deploy security against your workloads. You don't have to change your network architecture. You don't have to tie your VPCs together, have a shared VPC. You can simply take the workloads that you want to have monitored and have packet intercept, take the traffic, analyze it, and provide verdicts back for traffic that's allowed to go or traffic that should be blocked. So easy to turn on, org policy supported, and we've also introduced here at Google Next the integration for this same capability into Google Distributed Cloud. And you may have heard in the keynote this morning, we've extended AI support to where we can put machine learning models directly on-prem for workloads. So the beauty about this is you can leverage intrusion detection and protection system managed by Google with Palo Alto technology delivered right in your Google Distributed Cloud instance. The other thing we've done is we've announced the Google Distributed Cloud Marketplace for air-gapped environments. So when you have situations where you need to deploy solutions to protect your workloads, now Prisma Cloud Compute, Container Security, also can ship with that GDC instance. So let's talk about data, Munish. How do we protect that?
The more interesting stuff. So we've talked about accessing the infrastructure. We talked about securing the infrastructure. We talked about moving workloads. Now the question is, what do we do about our data? If you think about data, there are 5 questions that we typically try to answer. First of all, ask the organization or enterprise wherever you are, is how much data do you have? Where do you have that data? 100 out of 100, everybody don't know where their data exists. Something is lying in Google Drive, something in somebody's system, something in a database that's in an inventory system. So what we do is first discover that data on an automated basis. Once you discover it, the second question you ask is, okay, now tell me what's important and not important. You need to classify the data across a multi-cloud environment. So you start classifying the data and you say this is privacy related, this is regulatory related, so you can start bringing that understanding. Once you get that classification, then you talk about who has access to that data. A person sitting outside of Europe should not have access to privacy information, as an example. Or if it's a federal government contract you're serving, non-federal contractors are not allowed to have access to that information, whatever the condition might be. So you start looking at who has access to that information. But assuming all 3 are right, you've got the data, you've got the classifications, you've got the access rights correct. If somebody decides to have access, that's where detection comes and response comes. And that's where we've automated this whole collection of information into our autonomous SOC environment natively so that you can start detecting, alerting, and creating playbooks that are automated to prevent any data-related issues that could occur. And that leads us into what we do in our SOC environment, which is where now we are starting to go a little bit into how Palo Alto is using AI to help improve security versus till right now we were talking about how we can use security to protect AI, and they're both equally important. So we have 1,000 connectors. We have over 5 petabytes of data that we can bring in on a daily basis into our autonomous SOC environment. we automate this capability. And just the value proposition of this today, if you think about the thousands of alerts that existed, on an average, the industry today has about 6 hours mean time to respond. 6 hours. In 2018, it was something like 72 days. And by the way, SEC says it should be 4 hours. So we are worse than what the regulator wants us to do. In Palo Alto, because of the whole machine learning, AI capability, and autonomous playbooks and bringing all of this information, we can do this in 1 minute. 10 seconds we can detect, and in 1 minute we can respond. The number of automatic playbooks that get created against security threats that you have automatically take away most of the major threats. And then you can focus on select threats that might need manual intervention. So the whole capability of using AI and security to innovate and help you to secure your AI infrastructure really works well with each other. With that, all of this is theory right now. Let's see if it really works. I want to invite on stage Mike from Home Depot. Mike.
I'm here. My apologies.
Welcome, Mike.
Hey.
Good to see you.
Thanks, Mike. First of all, thank you, Mike, for coming. I know last week you were in a surgery, but he still came across because security in AI is a very important topic for everybody. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, no worries. I figured, we had the earthquakes on the East Coast. We had the solar eclipse. Locusts are coming this year. I had surgery. I figured the apocalypse is coming, so I better get here. Yeah. And
good strategy.
Come see you guys.
And you were late because there was a phishing attack in your... is that what caused it?
Yeah.
Why didn't you sit down, Mike?
Nothing like an event on a Friday afternoon. But we weren't breached. We had one of our vendors accidentally make something public that had private information in it. You probably read it if you read Bleeping Computer or anything along those lines. So it's a little bit, I take a lot of pride in what we do. So seeing, Home Depot's breached, I was like, not on my watch, wait a second, time out.
So what happened, Mike?
So basically, Home Depot's got thousands of third-party vendors that we work with, and we had a situation where one of our vendors who does some software development for us or provides SaaS for us had live data that they were using in their test environment, and it ended up being made public. And so somebody was opportunistic, saw the drive-by and grabbed fairly small portion of records when you consider Home Depot has 500,000 employees with it. But it makes for big headlines, and boy, did people pick up on it very quickly. So,
no worries, Mike. You're protected. I know with you along with Palo Alto and Google, you got it.
Yeah, it would definitely a great partnership.
Thank you. So, Mike, a few questions from the audience, and if the audience have questions, please feel free to get up and ask them. How does Home Depot look at AI and security, and give us a perspective of what your landscape looks like?
Yeah, AI is one of those things that it's out there and it's growing so fast that it's hard to keep your arms around it and make sure that you have some level of control over it. But you're never going to put the toothpaste back in the tube. It's here, so you have to deal with it. So from a user perspective, or how we use it at Home Depot, obviously there's lots of different functions that we leverage, marketing, and all of the things that you all have heard about today throughout the conference. But we also leverage it on the cybersecurity side. So we're a early adopter of the Palo Alto XIM platform, and it's been a really great thing for us as far as efficiencies. So we're on a journey like everybody else. We've got a fair number of folks who are testing various platforms on what we can leverage and bring to bear. And then, the hard part is you don't want everybody trying stuff. So when you look at our environment and we're seeing, this AI plugin or that AI plugin, it's like, well, wait a second, we got to have governance around all of this. Like, can we at least put guardrails up? Perfect example is we found an AI that there was a plugin that was being used that essentially listened in on your meeting and transcribed everything that was there. So it's essentially a note taker. The user didn't think anything of it. It's like, well, geez, this is great. We're going to use it. But when you think about the intellectual property that's potentially being discussed, the ramifications of what's there, that's a concern first and foremost, obviously. But then there's the other part of it that I'd be surprised if they thought about it. It's essentially recording your conversation to be transcribed. And there's lots of states, so if you've been on a WebEx and the second somebody hits record, it says this is being recorded. Do you want to leave? Well, that's because there's actually laws that you have to have consent. So like in Maryland, Maryland's a two-party consent state. If you don't give the person the opportunity to drop off of it, you're actually committing a crime. And so when I was talking to our chief architect, I was like, hey, Chris, this is a potential unintended consequence that we're doing. And he's like, yep, block it. So we blocked it. But that's really what we're trying to do is we want to be an enabler in security because it's just, we want the business to go fast. We know we're there because we sell lots of hammers, and we want the business to be able to sell those hammers. And what we need to do is make sure that we're being smart with how we're asking the business to do that.
Absolutely. I think, Mike, that's really important. I've asked this question in several conversations with our customers saying, what's your corporate strategy around AI and this whole LLMs and chat? Oh, we blocked all of it. So I said, how many phones have you looked at your employees and how many AI apps do they have on there? Yeah. And every time they have to type a message, how many times have they gone and pasted it on that AI app? Yeah. I don't know. I said, you haven't blocked it. Because you bring your own device, you can't block that device. I have 3 different LLM apps sitting on my phone for 3 different purposes. So,
yeah, I mean, and let's face it, cybersecurity we're seen as the people who say no or the brakes on the business. So I was talking with Josh, and the analogy that we use is, think about a race car, right? You want it to go as fast as possible, but what you actually have to have on the race car is you have to have the brakes, because you have to be able to slow down to get in the corner. So we kind of look at cybersecurity like that is, we're enabling you to go really fast, but that you can also slow down and make that turn and come out of it and then go faster again on the other straightaway. So really that's what we're looking at, is to be that enabler for it.
So in Palo Alto, we see on a daily basis, we see about 8 billion attacks that we defend against, that we know of.
Not just from us, I hope.
From the people who want to get to Home Depot. We're here to protect you. So from a Home Depot point of view, how do you see AI and how do you see the attacks? And give us a little bit about the landscape attack vectors in AI.
Yeah, I mean, so we consume a lot of data. We've got probably about 70 terabytes worth of data going into our SIM per day. That's an unfathomable amount to think you could actually go through all of it. So really what we're trying to do is leverage AI from the perspective of, how do we work efficiently and effectively with the tools that we have? And every cybersecurity person's goal is to find the anomaly. Well, you know what? You can't find the anomaly until you know what your system normal is. So AI lets us really kind of get to that baseline of like, oh, okay, this is what things look like and should look like across our entire environment over a long period of time. And then when there's little variations off it, we can go, hey, wait a second, what's that? Let me go pull that thread. Obviously, it also handles, we've got the criticals and highs and all of that. That's the fairly easy stuff. It helps us prioritize that because, as you can imagine, out of 70 terabytes worth of data, we get a lot of alerts. And being able to trim that down to a manageable size so that you're working on the right stuff, right? We don't want to just be working on tickets to work on tickets because they hit the queue. We actually want to make sure that we're leveraging the machine to do all of the lower level stuff, so then when it's a little more complex and needs that human interface, the gray matter between your ears, to sit there and go, well, wait a second, I need to make a judgment call on something. That's what we want our people working on.
Mike, you've mentioned in some of our earlier conversations backstage about how you can't automate everything at Home Depot. Can you talk a little bit more about kind of how you're having to manage for that inside your business?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a couple of ways to attack protecting an organization, and for so long, everybody's always tried to just account for everything. Well, when you have an organization like Home Depot, you got 500,000 employees, 2,300 stores, multiple countries. We're I think, 5th largest online retailer in the United States. You think about all of that stuff, you have to prioritize, like, well, what really matters? I mean, is every single CVE that comes out the most critical thing that needs to get done? Yes. I'll tell you what, if you can find a company that's able to actually patch all of them, I want to go work for that, because that's always the challenge is we're beholden a little bit to the infrastructure of, well, how do we spend time and how do we focus on what matters most, right? So this does let you kind of prioritize, if you will, of which ones need your immediate attention and which ones, like, okay, it's an alert, but because of the context of that particular machine, it's not as big of a deal that we can get to it and look at it in a little bit.
So apart from the advice of 100% patching of vulnerabilities, what else would you advise the audience?
The big thing for me with AI is get the governance piece up front, but you have to partner with folks, right? I mean, if you go at it with a traditional mindset of block everything, you're going to get so much pushback. And like I said, you're not going to put the toothpaste back in the tube. It's here. So realize that, figure out how to be the enabler, and involve your other stakeholders in all of the decisions. Because security is yes, our primary function is to protect the enterprise. But it's really to enable any business that you're in. It doesn't matter whether you're retail, healthcare, et cetera, right? The business has to function, and you have to be able to partner with those folks. So for me, it's about governance. It's about getting the visibility of what's actually being used in your environment, because like I said, unless you've got things locked down fairly strictly, folks are going to tinker on their machines. They're going to go like, oh, hey, this looked cool. Let me install it, as an extension in the browser. Okay, that introduces risk. So making sure that you have those guidelines is really important. Making sure you have the visibility and the partnership.
Go fast, survive the turn.
Survive the turn. That 100% should be everybody's goal is survive the turn.
So we'll quickly wrap the session up. The second case study is Palo Alto themselves, right? We have been on a journey for 10 years. We probably have the largest, we do have the largest real-time threat intelligence database in the world today. And we build it on Google Cloud and scale. We are allowed to bring all the information across all our product lines, the threat intel data, not the people data or the personal data, right? So it helps us to create a much better product as we start thinking about providing security for our customers. We address about $8.5 billion attacks we prevent on a daily basis. We see new attacks, about 750 million new attacks we see on a daily basis. Right? So we bring all of that technology in a cascaded learning around 3 major platforms that's already giving us about $100 million ARR business. So that's what we can deploy back into our customer base. Every time you deploy a SASE solution from us or a firewall solution from us, you're bringing in a wealth of threat intel information that improves everybody's threat capabilities. And that's really how we feed off the value to each other, right? That's what we have today. And we are in the process over the next few months, you're going to be seeing a whole lot of new announcements coming from us, specifically around AI firewalls that customizes LLM versus models. Or we see about 100 million users use our SASE solution today, 100 million. So we have collected so much information that we want to bring in a full digital experience to our customers, not only providing them better security in access, but also accelerating their whole digital experience on how they access applications. and then the whole security posture management around all your data and infrastructure across the world. We don't stop at that. We also are implementing co-pilots like everybody else, like other technology companies are, to help improve the types of analysts who can work. You don't need a sophisticated threat intel analyst to work in your SOC environment, because now you can use an LLM to have a conversation and get the same level of intelligence, because now you're focused on the why is the threats coming and where they're coming. You have a lot of automatic playbooks that allow you to get to close to 100% CV protection if you want it to be. So we're launching a whole new set of SOC capabilities with LLM and chat that you'll see in the next few months as we start working together. So really bringing this home for us, if the key takeaway is AI is here, highly productive. If we don't want it, our CEOs, board of directors, they're all talking about it. We've heard so many use cases. The opportunity is big. The threat actors are also very alert. They're using AI. So the question comes, how do you create a coordinated approach to get to the best of type of breed conversation? And Palo Alto, fortunately, we have 22 different market-leading technology capabilities that we have pulled together, what we call platformization. Mike just touched upon it. So it allows customers to get the benefit of data from access, zero trust, to firewalls, to security operations, and it feeds off each other to create a much more secure environment, whether you're looking at code-to-cloud platforms or zero trust platforms or autonomous SOC platforms. And of course, having governance principles of what you adopt is really, really important for us to get there. So I want to close off with a small video of a real-time this thing. I wanted to get Jim Kramer on board here. Unfortunately, there was a conflict of interest. He couldn't come here. But he said, you know what, use my video. I want you to use the video for Jim Kramer.
About the Change Healthcare hack, unfortunately. They've publicly stated that Palo Alto is working with them.
United Health.
United Health, well, Change Healthcare is a subsidiary of United Health, which is where this happened.
They brought you in.
They did, yes. It's us and Mandiant. We're working together. But what's different is, in the last 4 weeks, we have brought back their systems with their support. We have reconnected the pharmacies. The U.S. healthcare system is back on track. Now, what that is resulting in is...
it was down.
Yes, it was for a few days, because we had to make sure we cleaned everything, we put it in the right place, make sure the data was up and running, all connections were secure. So we brought it back up and running. What is important is Change Healthcare is going to platformize Palo Alto end-to-end. Right? It feeds back.
So they went with you.
A platform.
Right.
We have things in place. We're working to. I want to make Change Healthcare look like the example of what great looks like.